Need a cute way to give a gift card that doesn't scream, "I forgot to shop"? In this tutorial, I'm showing you how to make 3 stunning floral gift card holders using 2 super simple techniques. Seriously, they look like they came from a fancy boutique, but they're way easier than you think. One of them even has a pull-out tag that'll have you saying, "Wait, that's all it takes?" Plus, I'll share ideas to customize them for birthdays, Father's Day, or whenever you're feeling crafty. Sound good? Let's jump in with card number 1. I'll make the first floral gift card holder with these 3 die sets. For the sentiment, I'll use the stamp and coordinating die set that cuts everything out in one shot. I love these sets because they're super convenient. I'll be using the congratulations sentiment from this. There's also a larger sentiment in this set, but since I'm making an A2 card, it's too big for it. So I'll be sticking with just congratulations. For the focal point, I'll use Lisa Horton's Wildflowers die set here and wait until you see how gorgeous these flowers are. I'm using 2 out of the 3 flowers from the set. I'll use the set of nesting dies here to create the panels for the pocket as well as the layers for this gift card holder. For the gift card holder pocket, I used the largest scallop die and created 2 panels to create the pocket of the gift card holder. I cut out the center from the front layer of the pocket. Since no one's going to see it behind the layering, I'll add to the front. So it's a great way to save paper. I used the second largest die from the set to create the layer that will go on the front of the pocket and another stitched oval from the same set to create the tag that will have the gift card attached to it. And finally, another small mint stitched panel that will be the anchoring element for the flowers. I'll show you exactly how I adhere them, but first, let's put the flowers together. As always, I'll use my magnetic glass mat for the assembly since it makes holding things in place a lot easier. I'm using 2 of the daisy type flowers and the other one that looks like a poppy. I've die cut the flower centers from black glitter cardstock and I'll be layering that with gold cardstock for a little contrast. Let's start assembling. There's a little nub on this flower center and it helps you line up the layers. You just match the nub on the bottom piece to the nub on the top. Super simple. I'll add some glue to the top layer and position it over the bottom one, and that's it. Now, this next flower has 2 layers, both cut from the same color of cardstock, but you can change up the colors. It's kind of like fitting pieces into a jigsaw puzzle. It's really simple. The center of this flower has 3 layers and is a bit trickier to put together, but let me show you how to do it. So I'm using gold for the top and bottom layers and black glitter cardstock for the middle. The slightly larger gold piece goes on the bottom, then I'll layer the black glitter center, and finally, the smaller gold piece on top. Now that the flowers are ready, I'll move on to assembling the gift card holder pocket. First, I'm attaching the craft oval using liquid glue, being careful to avoid the center since I don't want the glue going through the opening. Liquid glue gives me a few seconds to wiggle things into the correct position, so I love using that. And Barely Art is my favorite since the bottle comes with a precision tip and the glue dries clear. Then I'll pop up the top layer using foam tape to add some dimension. The reason I'm adding a bit of liquid glue to the foam tape is because the glue will create a layer between the paper and the foam and allow me to shimmy the piece into place. Alright, now let me try to arrange this top floral cluster how I like it best. I want the stems to come together in a way that feels natural and cohesive. Since I'm really liking this arrangement, I'll pick it up all at once using a piece of press and seal. This helps hold everything in place just the way I want it. If you don't have press and seal, click a quick photo of the arrangement so you can put back all the pieces as you had them. Now I'm adding a tiny bit of foam behind one of the flowers to give it a bit of lift. I want this one to sit slightly higher and overlap the adjoining flowers. I'm not going to fuss with it too much. I'll just trim off this extra bit and add some glue underneath so I can still shift it around a little before it sets. There we are. Next, I'll attach the leaves. I like to adhere the bases and let the tips hang a little loose. It gives a more natural layered look, so it doesn't matter if they're not fully stuck down. Now let me show you how to create the pocket for the gift card holder. This is the piece that will go inside the pocket. I'm just placing it here temporarily to make sure it moves freely inside the pocket. I want it to sit just right, so I'm using a small magnet to hold it in place while I add adhesive. Alright, now that we've got the positioning right, I'll apply tiny strips of foam tape behind one of the panels. Now I'll align the second panel with the card base, and there we go. We have a nice little pocket. You can use it to slide in a message here or use it for a gift card, as I'll show you now. Speaking of which, here's my gift card that I'll use to demo how you can adhere it directly onto this insert piece, which then slides right into the pocket. There's a bit of room at the bottom, so it fits in nicely without getting stuck. Now we need a stopper to keep the insert from sliding in completely, as well as something to hold on to that will help me pull the insert in and out. By the way, I got this mind-blowing gift card holder hack from Betsy over at the Greetery. She was using a bookmark die for the tag, but I decided to improvise and use other shapes since I don't have a bookmark die. You'll see another version on another card at the end of the video. I'll attach this bow to the top of the insert, but I'll need to raise it a bit so it acts as a stopper, and I want the bow to stick out at the top for easy grabbing. So I'll cut a tiny piece of foam tape and use it behind the bow. This first layer isn't quite high enough, so I'll layer another piece on top to build it up. That should do the trick. Now I'll position the bow and pull the insert out just enough to check that everything fits properly. It's a perfect example of why adding that extra lift matters. To finish it off, I'm adding a dab of glue to secure the bow in place since it has a tiny point of contact with the tag. I want to make sure it doesn't pop off when someone handles the card. I'll let that set for a few minutes. And now it's secure. The bow stays in place and the insert won't slide in too far anymore. Alright, I'll set this aside now and let the glue dry. In the meantime, I'll work on the sentiment. I'm using some thick cardstock for this, and I'll place it on the sticky mat inside my MISTI to hold it in place. Since I have enough room, I'll go ahead and create 2 sets of sentiments. Might as well while I'm at it, right? But first, I need to make sure the cardstock is wide enough to hold the die. Yes, this piece will work perfectly. Since I'm using this stamp for the first time, I'll rub off the manufacturing residue with my fingers so the stamped impression is crisp and consistent. You can also wipe it down with a spritz of alcohol or just stamp with it a couple of times first. I'll rotate the sticky mat instead of removing the panel and stamp again for the second set. For the heat embossing, I'm using Ranger Ultrafine Gold Embossing Powder. I think I might have touched the panel too much. I'm noticing a bit of excess powder all over. I'll try to clean that up before I emboss. Now everything's heat embossed and looking beautiful. I'll let it cool for just a few seconds. I did notice a little area where the embossing powder didn't behave, some extra powder I missed before heating. It's not too bad, but I'll use my mono eraser to remove as much as I can without destroying the embossing completely, and I'll hit it again lightly with my heat tool after using the eraser because that will restore the shine. It's definitely better now, but I might eventually just toss it since I'm not too happy with how that turned out. I'll center the die on one set of sentiments and I'll trim off the set. I don't want it going through the die cutting machine unnecessarily, especially since my cutting plates are pretty scratched up. It could scratch up my second set of sentiments and ruin them. So I've run the die through and the sentiment turned out beautifully. I'll have a lot of leftover sentiments to add to my stash for future projects. I love it when you can get multiple die cuts in one shot. Since I have these sturdy leftover paper strips, I'll just use those for dimension instead of foam tape. I'll just cut a couple of narrow pieces with my larger scissors and stick them behind the sentiment. It's a great way to conserve your supplies and prevent waste. They'll give me the same dimension and actually better support since they're not as squishy as foam tape. I'll layer the backing strips across the sentiment to give it that nice pop-up look. I'll use liquid glue now to adhere it to the front and wiggle it into place to make sure it's perfectly centered and aligned. Now let's test everything out. We've got our pull-out piece assembled and you can see it slides in beautifully. The bit of foam is acting as the perfect stopper and helps to keep it from slipping in too far, which is perfect. If you're adding a gift card, here's a tip. Use a small piece of double-sided tape to hold it in place. You could also stamp a sentiment on the tag for a little surprise when the gift card is removed. In that case, it might be a better idea to use a glue dot instead of double-sided tape to hold your gift card. And just like that, slide it back in and there we go. The top of the gift card peeks out just enough so the recipient knows there's something to pull. Isn't that cute? The good thing is you don't have to use this as a gift card holder. You could just write your message on the tag instead. If that's the plan, either keep the cardstock to a light color or add a layer of lightweight white cardstock so the message is visible. Look at how beautifully this turned out. Let me know whether you're going to try this technique soon and for what occasion. The next gift card holder is a very simple design, quick to put together but still looks beautiful. I started with an 11 by 4¼ inch panel. I first scored it at 3½ inches, then I rotated it and scored it again at 2 inches. Simple scoring, that's all it is. All you now do is fold the panels and burnish the folds. You can just add a couple of glue dots to the 2 corners on the small flap, fold it up and that creates your pocket. But I'll use very thin double-sided tape instead of glue dots here. Before I close up the pocket though, I'll glue in this inner panel for writing a message because the card base I'm using, although it's a light color, but the surface is pretty textured. So it would be difficult to write a message on it. So I just want a nice even margin on the top and the sides. I'm not too worried about the bottom margin here since it won't be visible once we close the flap. Now I'll apply tape along the very edges of the small flap. Just place it close to the sides, burnish it really well, remove the release paper and then close the flap and press it down firmly. That forms the pocket. I've also prepared an insert piece and it fits nicely inside. I kept the little ribbon pull short so that it can close easily. It's a bit bulky at the top, but it still works. You could totally skip the ribbon and use twine instead, or leave it off altogether. Now for the demo. Here's the gift card. I've added a bit of washi tape to hold it in place. It just slides right in. The recipient can pull it out easily and read your message inside. All right, let me show you how I finished off this card. I used some heavyweight vellum to create a belly band so we can keep the card closed, especially since it's a little bit bulky with the ribbon inside. I added a splatter design to this label with this better press plate here. I've linked all the supplies in my blog post for your convenience. I cut the square using a label die, the third smallest in the set, and I also added one of the sentiments I created earlier. For this background panel, I used an embossing folder to add texture to the top fold, but I kept the bottom of the panel plain because the plain panel really focuses your attention on the sentiment, and I think the sentiment would cover most of it anyway. The gift card insert slides out easily and the message is right there. The anemone flower I added on the belly band was shaped using the small stylus behind the Simon Says Stamp Jewel Picker tool, which, to be honest, isn't the right tool for this. I don't have proper flower shaping tools, so this was a bit of a workaround. I just used what I had to give the petals and the flower center a little shape. I'll definitely need to invest in proper flower shaping tools for next time, since I have these and a few more gorgeous flower dies. Let me slide the band back on. It's a little snug, but it fits. The label behind the belly band creates a grounding element for the anemone. So here are the 3 gift card holders I made today. This one has the bow stopper created with the foam tape, which helps the tag stay in place. I finished this with Cosmos flowers and added one as the stopper for the gift tag insert, and I finished off with a bit of Wink Stella shimmer later on. I think I actually prefer it without the shimmer, but it still looks nice. You might just be able to catch a bit of sparkle on camera. And this one is another pull-out style with a foam stopper, just like the first one. Look through your stash and I'm sure you'll find something to use as a stopper if you want to create the gift card with the tab insert. We tend to buy stuff and forget, so this is a great opportunity to shop your stash. Father's Day is coming up, so find an element like a word die that says Dad or Happy Father's Day and use it as a stopper. This technique makes your card really customizable. Now, if you want more ideas for fancy fold cards, I recently made a video using pattern papers with fancy folds. You should check out that video here.